9-7.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Hersey Hoops' latest original podcast production, The Network, Episode 3, which features interviews with Hersey basketball alums across a variety of different careers and majors to highlight the connection between interscholastic athletics and career achievement. We hope the network can serve as a bridge between our alumni's experience in high school basketball with that of their professional successes. This episode of the network is brought to you by Cosley Law Office. As a Rolling Meadows family law and criminal defense attorney with over 20 years of courtroom experience, Don Cosley has an AVO rating of 10.0, including a superb rating as a top attorney in criminal defense. Their office represents clients in Rolling Meadows, Schaumburg, Palatine, Arlington Heights, Mount Prospect, BG, Barrington, Elk Grove, Inverness, Wheeling, Long Grove, and Mundelein. Call 847-253-3100 for a free consultation or visit Cosley.com. Tell them Hersey Basketball sent you. Last, subscribe to Hersey Hoops on Twitter or Instagram for live episodes of the network, which can also be found on YouTube, Spotify, or SoundCloud. Today, we welcome our third guests, Ricky Lelito, class of 2013, and Mike Lelito, Hersey class of 2016, and a very recent graduate of Marquette University, correct?
Yes, sir.
Congratulations. Ricky is the director of marketing for Tron Solar, Tron Restoration, and the Marketing Sharks. He's a digital marketing expert in charge of several influencer accounts, and together they have collaborated with Dominic Fortuna to form Pods, a music group with 32 tracks on SoundCloud and hundreds of thousands of plays. Their new EP, All Things New, is available on SoundCloud, so check that out. We'll get into that a little bit later. But first, guys, let's talk Hersey a little bit. You guys are kind of interested and involved with music right now. Were either of you involved with music in or out of school while in high school? And of course, you guys attended Marquette University together recently. What was like your light bulb, light switch, whatever kind of tagline you want to call that moment for collaborating on a music project together with Dominic? In essence, you know, when did you guys realize that you had a talent for this skill in this niche field?
Yeah. So in high school, I'd say we weren't really in that field yet. I know growing up, we've always been super interested in music and like the production side. Like we always like nice, just feel good like beats and stuff. So we've always just kind of progressively gotten more interested. And then once I got to Marquette, we bought like software, like a beat making machine, and then started off in the hip hop, like rap genre, just making beats for rappers and stuff. And then slowly transitioned into the more like electronic scene. So just kind of like DJing and making more like interesting tracks with like more substance to it. Just kind of getting that creative side out. In regards to like collaborating, I think we both just kind of played around to start off, just showing each other different projects we've made. And then one day we were like, yeah, we should just try this, see if we can make it out of something, and just kind of doubled down on it. And then we joined with my best friend growing up from back home. He was also interested in music at the time, so we just kind of all got together, thought about what we could do, what we could make of it, and just kind of went with the flow, and it's turning out pretty good so far. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add to that just one thing, which is us as humans, like everybody connects with music one way or another. We all have our tastes. We all, you know, like the genres that we like respectively. And it's really something that everybody can unite around one way or another. And our biggest thing is it's one thing to have like a skill for producing or whatever it might be, but if we can use that for like a greater good of ultimately just making people happy, because we try to put out, you know, those types of vibes and energy where you can be riding in your car on a nice summer day and it just changes your whole mood, you know, that type of music that we make. So it's really like that whole like bigger than us type thing.
Certainly.
That also was what you hinted at, like that light bulb where it all clicked. That drives us really.
So you guys, in essence, had no formal training of remixing or electronic sound equipment. It's a skill that you guys kind of taught yourselves.
Exactly.
From scratch. Yep.
Yeah. A lot of YouTube videos, a lot of
Yeah,
out.
I was gonna say that's a long process and definitely something that's very esoteric in terms of learning how to do that well. But I think, what's interesting about each of your story as well is the worlds of sports and music coincide quite a bit. And you see that at the professional levels, but also, every high school team has, a warm-up mix that's 100 times out of 100 made by a player,
Right.
right? Because I think coaches know better than to try to navigate that territory on their own. And that said, I bet if I asked you guys, you feel that you become more well-versed and have become better musicians over time, just like anything, correct?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's just that learning process, and I actually made our senior year warm up tape at Hersey, so I was pretty familiar with that.
So humble beginnings for sure.
Exactly.
All right. So before we get into your individual stories here, I got a quick trivia question for you guys about Marquette. There are two Hersey basketball alumnus brothers that currently attend Marquette University. Can you name them?
Yeah, the Igo brothers.
The Igos, Brendan and Kevin Igo. So if
Yeah.
you're going to Marquette, it's almost got to be like a brotherly deal at this point.
We grew up with them. They live in the same neighborhood as us, and we went to the same grade school. So
Oh, that's awesome.
Coach Kevin.
Okay, fantastic. And yeah, Kevin,
them.
last year, one of the most selfless kids I've ever been around, and I'm sure Brendan's the same way.
Yeah.
Mike, many know that you spent 3 seasons as a walk-on basketball player at Marquette. What was your vision when you decided that you wanted to extend your basketball career, playing Division I, and then describe all of the hard work on a day-to-day basis that went into chasing your college basketball dream? I think a lot of people, sometimes see walk-ons on the bench and waving towels with all the gear, and they think that it's this luxurious, lavish life. I know better than that. But can you give us a little bit of the day-to-day trenches of hard work and sacrifice that go into a job with not that much fanfare, like being a walk-on basketball player?
Yeah. So basically my whole life, I always wanted to play at the college level. And obviously the big dream is Division I, whatnot. So I know at the end of my senior year for Hersey, I was kind of contemplating if I actually wanted to play in college, whether just to go for academics or not. So I ultimately decided not to pursue that route with going to a smaller school to play there. But once I got to Marquette, went through my freshman year, that was just as a normal student, everyday student. And then the summer after that, they actually emailed him because he reached out one of his early years about walking on, and they said that they were having a tryout. So I emailed them right away, just said I'm interested. I think I could provide a good energy to the program and whatnot. So once they scheduled the date for the tryout, it was about 3 or 4 months in advance where we really just started training every day. It was at the point where it was 2-a-days. And it was just a lot of sacrifice to just kind of fulfill that dream that I've always wanted to. And I would talk to former players too from Marquette, and they were talking about how it's not what everyone thinks. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you have to do, and it's a really tough job. And so once the tryout came, had a good tryout, ended up talking to the coaches, and then the next week I was practicing with the team, and that was really just, it all happened so fast that it kind of it never really hit me until the first game of the season, which was kind of funny just because it all happened in kind of a blink of an eye. But you learn there's no time to sit back and just kind of take your time with learning everything. The college level is just so fast all the time, whether it's film sessions or practice or games or just the pace that everyone plays at and learns is just like astronomically high, and that's something that you have to adapt to. And on top of that, your body just has to get used to two practices a day, like a lift every morning, the conditioning workouts, yeah, the whole puzzle that you have to put together to really understand like the college level and what it takes. But overall, like the experience is unbelievable, especially with Marquette. They provide their players, they treat their players so well and give them so many opportunities. But overall, I'd say that like I believed in myself from the beginning that I could do this, and ultimately that's what it comes down to, is like belief in yourself and backing it up with hard work. So
Right. And I think one of the things sometimes is I don't think walk-ons get enough credit for the work that they do. But I think any good player and any player that commands the respect of others recognizes the hard work that goes into being a walk-on. And I think at the greatest programs or the best programs, the coaches and the scholarship players respect the walk-ons as much as anybody else because they see that hard work. So as a fan favorite of the students at Marquette, what did you learn from that experience that has served you in either school or with, pods? I know a lot of people see, like, again, the free gear and the navy and gold Jordans, but like, what would you tell them, like, basketball has taught you in the other avenues of your life, so to speak?
yeah, I mean, obviously all like the physical gear and stuff, it's super nice, and they kind of just flood you with it, which I'm very grateful for that I got to experience that. Um, but like the aspect of just kind of working every day, no matter what it is, you're always trying to learn and like get better and develop into a better player on and off the court, whether it's like through community service stuff or just like practice in general, or trying to be a better teammate. You can kind of translate that to your everyday life. So whether it's like studying for a test or trying to start a business or working at music, you just gotta not really think about all the rough side of everything and just kind of keep going. Just kind of chipping away and just trying to develop every day.
So like almost that incremental improvement that you mentioned in talking about like your first ventures with pods is where your tracks are now. That incremental improvement could be assessed to your skills as a basketball player as well.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So changing gears a little bit before we get into like the specifics of creation and style, Ricky, give us an elevator pitch on pods. Like what genre would you classify it as? Who are your major influences musically? And then how do you decide what songs you remix? Because you guys run the gamut a little bit in terms of artists remix. So I think you're looking for something specific, but you got 1 minute on the clock here to give us an elevator pitch to get the fans out on Spotify to listen. So to get those streams, here we go. Go ahead.
Cool. So Pods is primarily an electronic dance music genre, otherwise known as EDM. However, we really try to create music from scratch that basically makes you feel like you are at the beach on a nice summer day, hanging out with friends, having the time of your life, or just sitting back, relaxing, enjoying the weather, like that summer vibe, feel good music.
Okay.
It's very high energy, very, upbeat. It's not super chill. But we really try to mimic those artists like Louis the Child, Weefin, Martin Garrix. We're not that intense, but really just a lot of the people that create that feel-good music electronically.
So not quite like, so if you're playing at Lala, not quite the Perry stage, but definitely more of like the upbeat stage.
I think if we were at Lala, we would be at Perry's,
Okay.
but we would not be near the traditional level of intensity.
Okay,
like
fair
it would
enough. Fair enough. When you have listeners, I would say 90% of them are interested in that Lollapalooza festival. So it's like that might be how you relate it to, I guess. Second question, Ricky, you're obviously well credentialed in internet advertising and marketing. and have shared some posts recently about like the value of mastering the internet. Like what are the turn-ons and turn-offs for social media consumers from a marketing perspective? And how do you market something like pods? And, you know, what is your style and approach in doing that? And how important is that for somebody, you know, who's starting, obviously, like without a label and things like that, in order to get the viewership and kind of the streams that you want?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So to answer the first part, which was, you know, what are the turn-ons and turn-offs? From a marketing perspective, it's an interesting question because this is something I've been exploring for years now. And what it's come down to for me is at the end of the day, people don't want to be sold. They want to be helped. And helped is a broad word that I use there. Basically, it's saying if I'm scrolling through Facebook, if I'm scrolling through Instagram, whatever it might be, is your post that pops up on my feed actually going to provide value in some way, shape, or form to my life? And so, you know, for example, one of my products, I sell a Facebook advertising course. If I can, instead of making a post about, hey, buy my course, the route people should go and the route that I go is, hey, let me actually teach you something in this 3-minute video completely for free.
Sure.
That you don't have to pay for. There's no catch. Yes, of course, you know, everybody's selling something at the end of the day, but if I can just provide value up front completely for free, that is, you know, what breaks down those walls and builds trust with people.
So just to almost become the impetus to learn more is to break them through that initial learning ground.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
There's the whole science behind that and stuff, but to translate that to pods, to answer your second question, which is, you know, how does somebody market music? How would somebody get their name out there, specifically using the internet? The biggest thing I can recommend is learning the skill of running successful campaigns on Facebook and Instagram. And so you know, there's a whole science behind that as well. But we've promoted our EP, we've promoted, you know, our new songs on Instagram, even just with Instagram stories, like something, you know, people watch every day. Use that basic psychology of really nice 4K video with really nice animated text and a clip of our song. And it's like the best part of the song that would, in our opinion, make somebody's emotions really hit that peak. Oh my gosh, I feel great listening to this right now type of mood.
Sure.
And we've actually seen like well over, you know, a couple hundred new listeners just from like $15 spent with some campaigns.
Okay. Now, obviously, like you kind of have this sage mindset, and you've worked with film directors, musicians, influencers, all sorts of internet personalities. Like, what important lessons or takeaways have you gained from them? Perhaps working with somebody famous or who wants their digital footprint branded in a sort of way. What have you learned from these people?
Yeah, it really boils down to just providing value to people. At the end of the day, if you ask anybody that knows anything about marketing, it will always come down to the key point that is what you are providing actually helping somebody. It's the same thing I'm echoing from 2 minutes ago that I just said. But, you know, I've talked to people like Prince EA, who a lot of people know as this influencer, Russell Brunson, who is the founder of ClickFunnels, a massive software company that people use every day to generate business online. And everything they talk about is value. So like for you as a coach, your game plan, your strategies, your personality is, at the end of the day, that is value to other people. And some people listening might be in the corporate world. Some are coaches, some are players. You know, Mike, for example, as a walk-on, if he's providing value to Marquette's program, which the coaches clearly saw, that's what gets people to buy in. And so whatever it is, like, you have to make sure that what you are doing, what you are saying, your actions are actually enhancing and helping the team around you or your vision.
Certainly. So one last question, like what is the threshold for when you find a campaign or a marketing scheme to be successful? Like, is it revenue based? Is it like click based? Or is it just aligning with the vision of their brand? And then, like you said, adding value to their career. How do you quantify that as somebody who's worked with people at different stages of success, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Good question. So of course it depends what, industry or niche or what goal you have. For me as a businessman, it's different than a coach at the end of the day, but I'll just give you like two examples. One, I run all the ads and oversee all the marketing for our solar company, Tron Solar. And we do, 400 to 500 homes a year where we put panels on the roof. And so all of that comes through running ads. And so for me to quantify, and this will probably kind of spark some interest to those business minds out there listening, my campaigns, the metrics I look at are the cost per lead. So like the cost that it takes me to get somebody to come through our advertisement and actually give us their information so we can contact them. And then also, link clicks, are people actually stopping and clicking on the ad instead of scrolling through? Because if people are clicking a lot, that means the ad is working. If they're not clicking, it's not working. It's common sense. But, for music or, different industries, music would be something more along the lines of how long are people spending time watching our promo video? Because then we know how long they're actually hearing our music. And if people are like, there's a way to track that. If people are scrolling through after 3 seconds of the video, we know that ad probably isn't working. If people are watching all 15 seconds, that's a good sign for us because that means they're actually, stopping. Something made them stop and listen. So it really depends. And at the end of the day, from a business standpoint, it really comes down to the cost per fill in the blank, cost per scholarship in the sports world, because we have budgets to work with and goals to meet. So that's really what it comes down to.
Okay, so a little bit more specifically into pods here. Peeling through your discography a little bit, you guys have sampled and remixed Louis the Child, Justin Bieber, The Neighborhood, and the Chainsmokers. What are you looking for in a potential song to remix? You talked at the beginning about the vibe that you're trying to get, right? Or the end goal or intent of, where it's supposed to be listened to, in a preferred situation. But it's obviously more than just the chorus or the hook or something like that. So just enlighten us a little bit. And Mike, I'll let you start on like the creative process of choosing a song and determining how you want to remix it and in what way.
Yeah. So I think like the first step would be finding a song that we actually enjoy. I think working on something that we find or like that we listen to or that other people listen to is essential in like starting that creative direction. And also on top of that, having like that room to be creative as possible and kind of adding our own touch on it. So whether it's like a Louis the Child song, they're really known for their sound design and just like really being as creative as possible. So a lot of acapellas that are out there, which is just the vocals, we'll find them, kind of work with them, mix them down, and then start from scratch on basically creating a whole new song, I guess, but without like the original touch on it, where we can kind of put our own spin on it. But I think it just comes down to remixing like a song that we like and then kind of keeping that same sound that we try and aim for through like our original music that we've released. So yeah, just kind of giving that there's enough room for us to be creative and expand on what we like making.
Sure.
Yeah.
Ricky, anything to add there in terms of what you're looking for specifically, or at what part in the song you'd like to remix, or is that just something that you just kind of see like a natural intuitive talent, or is it something that you've gotten better at over the course of time, and how do you identify that?
Yeah, there's certain sounds that we've come to like over time. Certain, Mike mentions like sound design, where we just know we inherently have this like light bulb click in us when we hear something really good, and then just run with it. And Mike does a lot of that actual production. Me personally, I'm a huge like emotion guy. I think music stirs up emotion, and that's why people connect with music. And that's why people have favorite songs, is because they emotionally connected with that some way, somehow, very strongly. And so for me, when I am making music or, giving constructive criticism to Mike or Dom, I always try to loop in that like emotional, whether it's a certain chord pattern or something like that, that really like tugs on those heartstrings of people and like really opens up, that avenue to make a connection with the song. So that I really go after that.
So do you guys, and let me pivot a little bit here, do you guys have different roles within pods? Like it sounds like you just referenced a little bit, like Mike is more the mechanical sound producer, whereas you would be more of like the emotional quotient, like finding a place to maybe perhaps make it most tangible for listeners' emotions. Then where does Dom come in? Or do you guys have that delegated, or do you mix it up a lot?
Yeah. So I think for the most part, the part I enjoy doing the most is the actual production, and I think that's what I've found my strength in. So I always like to double down on my strengths, and just really build off that. And then I'll make a song or like be making one with Rick and Dom, and just kind of listen to what they're saying and see how we can overall improve the track itself, whether it's just like mixing or just simple little things that would just make a big difference that a lot of people wouldn't notice. And then Dom, he likes to focus on DJing, so like we're aiming to start doing a lot of shows, whether it's around Chicago or in Milwaukee or just on college campuses. We're really starting to aim in that direction to really kind of get our name out there and start creating that overall experience that we want to aim to connect with people as a whole. And then Rick, he's kind of all over the place. He's more of the business side, for sure, like what drives every like campaign or kind of promoting the song. But he's also helping out all the time with different like constructive criticism, like he said, or just giving advice or new ways to connect with different artists. So I think we all blend together very well right now, and just kind of create that like triangle where everything comes together and we're all helping each other out.
Right. And I think that music so often, and Rick, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, is constantly adapting and constantly changing. So it's almost like a race for, a group or a style to adapt or adjust in a way that's well received by people.
Right.
And obviously, if you look back 10 years, like your genre probably wasn't even, fully marketable yet as to where it is today. So what do you guys see in the next kind of 5 years? And you just mentioned a little bit of this, DJing on some college campuses and stuff. What do you see as your like 5-year plan, or a goal for a couple years down the road? Where do you guys think you might be with this venture?
Yeah, so I mean, we also like writing down our goals for sure. I think once you write it down, you actually see them, you're more than likely to achieve them. So I know our big goal of ours is to actually like perform at Lollapalooza, just because we've grown up going to that and just seeing how people react there, and it's just a great time overall. So that kind of be our main goal, I'd say.
In 5 years,
yeah,
we want to do that.
Yeah, like in that span, and also just overall just like continue to improve on our sound. because like you said, times are changing. Like music is always adapting, and it's always you're trying to see what is the next trend or next wave that people can hop on. And it's just always staying active, always learning, to really, I don't know, create more value to your brand and um, just create a better experience overall. So
Okay. And let me ask you this, Rick. Like, is there in this field or in your genre like a lot of intellectual property restrictions or copyright infringement stuff, or is today's like music environment where everybody's streaming and sharing and borrowing or sampling, I guess you could say, each other's beats? Is it kind of just an open market?
Yeah, it's a very technical question. The simple answer is yes, there is a lot of intellectual property and legal restrictions to using somebody's sound. But there are, there's a simpler way to go about it, which is you can copyright your music and then give people permission to use it, whether it's a licensing fee or royalties or whatever. We have artists on our songs that are actually like credited artists, meaning we're basically like co-artists on one song together. And so on Spotify, for example, artists get paid a extremely small amount, but they do get paid every time somebody listens to their song. And so if you credit another artist, for example, you guys split that money, even though again it's an extremely small amount, so small that Spotify won't even disclose it. But it's like 0.07 cents a play or something. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that, and YouTube, I mean, they're really good at finding copyright violations and then either monetizing that video to the proper artist, or they'll just shut the sound off, honestly, and Facebook will do that too. So best thing to do is filter your search on YouTube or Google to Creative Commons or the rights to use and edit the actual content.
Well, I think for young people, that's an important part of the process before they go, sampling songs that are going to eventually maybe get them in trouble or put them 2 steps backwards from where they initially were. Okay, so last question kind of is, how do you guys feel Pods is a combination of all your talents? In the 3 of you at large, like creation, marketing, graphic design, artistry, music, stuff like that. Because I think, very few people your age have an outlet for them to really be creative. I know you guys probably know people, who are in desk jobs, wearing ties to work, where they don't really have a chance to be creative or explore that side of their brain. So how has this kind of helped you and become a combination of all your talents and all your passions really too?
Yeah, I think to start off, us 3, we're all very like similar in our mindset, where we have that idea of where you only have one life and you might as well try as much as you can while you're here. And like chasing dreams is always one of our biggest aspects, and just like starting a new venture, I guess. But I think this one, we found that we really enjoyed doing it. And that creative process is something that we take a lot of pride in. Like throughout each song creation, we just like trying new things or just playing around with different sounds that most of the time end up sounding good, that you wouldn't even think you would have created 30 minutes prior. Like that's my favorite aspect of creating a song, is you start off with kind of this blank canvas, and you just build and build and build until it's something that a lot of people wouldn't be able to like create at that time. And it's just that aspect of like improving all the time. But we just love that creative process and really just sticking to the plan and chasing after what we want to achieve in life. So
yeah, and I'll add to that, which is and I don't mean to sound like Gary Vee right now, but I'm going to take a page out of his book, which is, well, 2 pages actually. One if you're in high school or you're in college or you're graduating college, like Mike here, basically from your window of 18 to 29 to 30 years old is arguably the greatest window of life to literally just go after anything you could possibly want, because you don't, most don't have kids, most don't have mortgages or stuff like that, like huge expenses. You might be paying rent, I get it, but most just really have very minimal expenses in life. And if you're ever gonna go all in, now is the time to do it, because if you don't, you're gonna miss that window, because it's way harder to build a business. It's way harder to spend 3 hours a day producing music when you have 2 kids and a family to feed at night, you know?
Yeah.
So that's one thing. And the second thing is, a lot of people don't understand that when you're starting a business or you start producing music or whatever it is, when you start playing basketball for the first time, like, you're going to suck. It's inevitable. Everybody starts out at a very low point on the scale because it's new and you have to learn things. And usually there's like a 2 to 5 year window where you're just bad.
Mm-hmm.
But through that window, the people that are willing to put their head down and keep going through the walls of frustration and the walls of discouragement and no support from people, if those who are willing to ignore all that and just keep pushing through and find solutions, like this guy has watched so many hours of YouTube on producing and he's still barely scratched the surface, and now he's getting really good. Like, those are the people that succeed, who understand that there's a 2 to 5 year window of failure until you really start to figure things out. And then everybody sees the success and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys made it. But
Right.
all that trouble in the first couple of years.
And that's something that we've even touched on, with our team a little bit, is that success is like an asymptote. Like, and
Very much so.
There's a part of the journey of success that's so small, where you're improving in such small ways that it's hard to really even quantify. But if you want to continue to achieve, that's the mud that you have to get through in order to achieve that level. And I think that was such a seamless connection with basketball or with anything, that it is a continual struggle for improvement. And like you mentioned, like, high school kids, college kids are in their creative prime. I'm officially 31 now. I'm out of my prime. I think like you were saying, it would be hard for me to do that for 3 hours a day now, because you have different priorities and you have different things that you have to balance. And I think that was such an eloquent way of putting that, is that you have to go after it now. And to steal Mike's term, that you got to double down on your strengths. If you really see this as a passion for yourself, to capitalize on it the way you want to be and the way that you've seen other people be successful. Mm-hmm. It's an important time to do it. But I think a lot of people don't get over the courage that it takes to get there too.
It's not even music either. It could be with anything, whether it's like you're passionate about being a doctor, or passionate about being like an accountant. It takes time to like develop that craft and really perfect it. Like Rick said, I don't even think I'm really that good at producing right now. But I know if I stay consistent, it'll only get better and I'll be where I want to be. So it could just apply to many aspects of life, whether it's basketball, school, or just kind of anything.
Okay. And then, building off that, obviously, in a pandemic quarantine here, like, time is a valuable commodity. And we've touched on that a little bit. Has this time helped you guys, or is there a certain part of the creative process to get to where you're in a flow that's missing, being stuck in your childhood home? Or what is your ideal environment to produce in? And are you guys able to do that in the same room, or are there non-negotiable elements that you guys individually need in your own creative processes?
Yeah, I mean, I think this quarantine has honestly helped all of us more than anything, with like the creative process, because like trying to book a studio, it gets expensive, and we're just trying to minimize the cost. So we just make all our stuff on our laptops and literally just in our bedrooms. And then just show it to one another. But I think this time right now is crucial for not only us, but everyone who's trying to like improve on something. Just because you literally, all you have is time right now, aside from school or work, which I mean, you can't do all day, but there's like that window of time throughout each day where I set aside and focus on creating some songs or trying to do like a DJ mix. But I think this quarantine has really helped us realize what we're good at and narrow down where we want to be and kind of what our sound is aiming for. And like, I think we're in the right direction right now. And we're also collaborating with a bunch of artists, getting a lot of features. So we're really excited for what's to come in the next year or two.
Awesome. All right, now that we're into it, Ricky, like where can we find Pods on social media or streaming sites? I've used it personally, and like in doing my background research for this podcast, I've used it a lot, like on runs or on bike rides. I think it lends itself to that tremendously. So it's kind of become my new go-to in that realm. But where can we find the music? How can we listen to it? And give us a little update on the new EP that just came out as well.
Yeah, so our Instagram handle is at Pods Music, literally just PODS, Pods Music. And then, yeah, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Music, we're on SoundCloud, pretty much any platform you can think of we're on. And our name is, again, just Pods, PODS. And yeah, our new EP we released about a month ago, right?
A little over a month,
over a month ago. Really was our first showcase like project of what we can do from scratch. And really our goal was to show what we were capable of, and really just make some good music with different tones in each song and different moods, but keep that high energy, like you said, you know, running music and what have you. But we got some more projects in the works with different singers. Can't really name names yet, but a lot of good stuff coming, and we're really excited for it.
Yeah.
Well, last question, and this is just kind of from my own experience as a listener. How do you organize tracks on an album?
That's a good question. We had some trouble developing that too when we were kind of trimming down which songs we wanted on the EP and not. But we'll just have like a long listening session of the songs and kind of see how it flows together, like energy wise. So maybe one will start like mid, like high energy, and then you slowly build up, and then kind of digress, I guess. But we loved how the structure turned out and how the music turned out. So it's really just finding the songs that you enjoy rather than like what you think people would enjoy, because that's what it comes down to. Is if you're not liking the stuff you're making, I don't think you'll really go anywhere with it. But yeah, it's just about trimming down the right songs and creating that natural flow, I guess.
For sure. All right. I always tell the kids you have to be over believers before you're overachievers, and I think that's something that you guys have really mastered in your venture here. So thanks again, Ricky and Mike Lelito, for your willingness to be our guests today. Follow at Hersey Hoops on Twitter or Instagram for live episodes of the network, and follow the podcast on YouTube for the full visual experience, or Spotify or SoundCloud for the audio. While you are on Spotify or SoundCloud, be sure to check out Pods and their new EP streaming for you guys. Give it a listen. All right. Thanks again for coming on, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much for
absolutely
grateful.
Absolutely. All right, enjoy the rest of your quarantine, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Silly with your ice, grilly with the dilly, yo. When I be on the mic, I do my duty, yo. While up in the club like we while in the studio. You know when to violate, baby, really and truly, yo. My main thug, villain ain't Julio, he moody, yo. Type of brother that'll slap you with the tulio. Real shook, scared to death, act fruity, yo. X that, look at shorty.